right here. We just really want to rub it into Craig Mauger. See all these, pictures up here, so it gets in the shot. So that'll be good. You think he'd be here? Heat passed. Heat is moving. You guys see heat. The Hall Ethics, Accountability, and Transparency Plan. You gonna move it closer to me?
Yeah, I'm gonna move it for you.
See it? Okay, good. See, I think it should be closer too, but anyway, why you?
It's screwed on there.
Oh, it used to be closer to me. Good. Okay, is that too loud? No. This isn't the kind of microphone where it makes me louder in the room. I think it's connected to something, but.
Just going to our cameras.
Will it work for you? Yep. Okay, good. I want you to get this on your show. So, anyway, HEAT is moving the Hall Ethics, Accountability, and Transparency Plan. We know this is the most significant ethics, accountability, and transparency reform that has happened in most of the careers of the people who work here in the Capitol. And you see, not only did our Government Operations Committee today move swiftly on banning the non-disclosure agreements that many of these politicians sign, where they keep hidden from the public the details of deals that they're working on here at the Capitol, but also ensuring that staff do not enter into these NDAs either, because what was going on is some politicians were not signing the NDAs and saying, oh, I didn't sign a non-disclosure agreement, and then their staff signed the NDAs, and they were getting the information and hiding it from the public. So by banning the politicians from signing non-disclosure agreements where they can hide deals they're working on from the public, and also banning their staff, we're stopping the public from being kept away from very valuable information that they should know as we're looking at how taxpayer dollars are being spent up at the Capitol. So that moved swiftly through the Government Operations Committee, and if you look, it passed 5-0 with everybody voting for it. And so you remember I told you this, if you have the right leaders focusing on the right issues, you can bring people together, you can get a lot done up here, and I'm doing that with the Hall Ethics, Accountability, and Transparency Plan. And it was interesting, I was talking to Dylan Wegela. Do you know when Dylan Wegela was here, and if Gorchow was here, he'd probably jump in right now and say this, but Dylan Wegela claims that he was not allowed to get a bill through the chamber 2 years ago. And it's very possible he could be the first House Democrat to get a bill through the chamber under my leadership. And some people think we should add him to the HEAT poster. It would look good. Did you see the poster? It's everywhere, all over town. So, and you guys know that was a movie, and the poster looks, I have to tell the younger reporters this. So HEAT was a movie with Al Pacino and Robert De Niro and Val Kilmer, and the poster looked like that. And somebody took the poster and put Steve Carra's face on it, Matt Maddock's face, my face, and probably Dylan Wegela's. We'll see. But anyway, he has embraced HEAT. He has embraced HEAT. HEAT is moving. The NDA bills cleared the Government Operations Committee, and then even better, we saw the House today. And what was the vote? Do you know, Gideon? Did anyone track it?
I don't know.
What was Gorchow here? No? Does it? You got the vote? Well, it was like 98?
Yeah, it was overwhelming.
So we didn't bank 100, but still 98 is pretty good out of 110. And so you see, once again, leading, the House Speaker leading, and we got 98 votes on these bills. And so you have, again, we're bringing politicians together, even politicians who didn't let these bills come up for a vote last year. And you look, Republicans and Democrats are coming together to stop this revolving door where politicians leave office and become lobbyists, or where politicians become lobbyists while they're politicians in other states and say, it's okay if I'm getting paid in another state, I will just still vote on those issues here in Michigan. And our Attorney General, who is too busy prosecuting her political opponents, does nothing about it. So we have to act as a legislature. And you saw we did that. We put up 98 votes, Republicans and Democrats, coming together to stop politicians from becoming lobbyists, stopping Whitmer administration officials who are all going to be looking for a job here in 2 years from becoming lobbyists, stopping our Attorney General from becoming a lobbyist. And somebody told me that she's declined to run for the Supreme Court. Well, the good news is if we get this done, she won't be a lobbyist either. So there's going to be fewer opportunities for our Attorney General and our Secretary of State and our Lieutenant Governor. None of them will be lobbyists or any of these department heads or any of the politicians. The public doesn't want politicians trying to get jobs as lobbyists while they're working for the people. And I mentioned this during the lame duck. You know, you have to wonder, as the time is winding down, are the politicians working to get jobs with special interests? And that's something you actually have to worry about as the session winds down. And so now, if we get this through the Senate and signed by the governor, the public will rest assured that isn't a problem anymore, and we don't have to worry, who are these politicians working for? That cooling off period, I think, will be very important to restoring trust and integrity in Michigan's government. So heat is happening, and there was a pretty funny story in one of your publications where they said there was some kind of joke about a cooling off period is part, you know, with you need that for heat. That was kind of funny that you guys wrote, but point is, heat is coming, it's moving swiftly, and there's many more bills coming behind it. So I hope you'll write that the House is moving swiftly on the most significant ethics, accountability, and transparency package that the Capitol has seen in many years. Now, I know most of you are here to talk about heat, and I understand it, but we also wanted to talk about what's going on with the earned sick time policy. Does anyone want to hear about that? You do? Okay. Well, that's good. You do? All right. So I'll talk about that briefly. So, you know, we've been working around the clock since I was here yesterday, talking with Sam Singh, and really trying to figure out a deal on this sick leave policy. And I'll just say I feel like we're getting pretty close to a deal here. And I'll say, you know, again, you have the right leaders like me putting the right issues on the table, but also you have to have you know, you have to build trust, you have to be patient. I mean, this is not a policy that either side, I would say, is really happy about, you know, and that's some of what compromise is, you know, by the way, you all saw, I put a right down the middle 50-50 compromise on the table. And most people were surprised when the Democrats didn't accept that. And I would just say the Democrats represent some very radical union bosses and activists. And we're up against a deadline of midnight. We got to get this done. We have like 12 hours to get this done, probably less than that now. And so we have to reach across the aisle a little further their way, okay? But I'll say this, they're also coming our way too in the conversations. And so I feel optimistic that we'll be able to get something done tonight. And we're going to keep working with Sam Singh and the Senate Democrats until we get there. And so you see we're at ease right now. We're going to keep working through that. If we do get a deal, you'll see that come through the Senate first because the bill is in the Senate. 4002, the Jay DeBoyer bill, is in the Senate. So you'll see it move there first, and then you would see the House come and get that through. So, you know, I've been in touch with my caucus. Just say, you know, I mean, this is a party that was not the governing party the last 2 years, the Republicans. And so as we're working through this, you know, we're leading, but governing isn't getting everything you want. Governing is compromising. But I'll tell you this, this is really critical to every worker in Michigan and every small business to Michigan that we come to the center and make a deal here, because workers are about to lose their jobs. Small businesses are about to close. You're going to see restaurant workers potentially losing their jobs and their pay getting cut, and you're going to see many restaurants close if we don't have a deal. It will be an absolute crisis for our state. I mean, some of you pointed out, some of these employers, they don't even know what their workers are supposed to be paid tomorrow. You look at some of these smaller companies, they're not ready for these new changes in law to take effect tomorrow. And so you're going to have total chaos across the Strait of Michigan. That's funny. You're going to have, is there a Strait of Michigan? I don't even know. I just made something up. Maybe we should come up with one. We have a Gulf of America. We should come up with a Strait of Michigan. But anyway, there will be an absolute crisis across the state of Michigan if we don't get a deal today. And so I just want you to know House Republicans are working in good faith to solve this problem so we can avert this crisis that's going to cost many Michigan workers their jobs and many employers to close very soon. So we're working through that, and I will say I give Sam Singh credit. I mentioned he has a very radical left-wing ideology, but he's putting that aside and working to meet us in the middle in good faith. So I'm hopeful we'll come up with a solution that works for small businesses, works for workers of Michigan, and ensures something that's been a top priority for House Republicans, which is that every Michigan worker can have sick time off that's paid, but they have a job too. They need to have a job and an employer that's still open after this week. And I think we're very close, and I think we'll get that to happen. So, and then I'll just say, you know, for me, I mean, I looked the people of my district in the eye, you know, the people of Kalamazoo and Allegan counties, and said to the small businesses and to workers, I'm going to do everything I can as the Republican leader here to ensure that we work in good faith to get a deal. We don't blame the other side. We work to get a deal because this affects your livelihood and your job and your life. So we are doing that, and I'm confident we're moving in the right direction. We'll get something done tonight. So now I watched a lot of your predictions. Some of you predicted we would do that, and some of you didn't. So we'll see if it happens, because they're still politicians, so anything can happen. But I'm feeling pretty good. So I wanted to give you that update because I feel like no one else is talking to you up here. But I'll take questions if there are any questions, and it's okay if they're not. Yeah.
Yesterday you talked about the rebuttal presumption and exempting businesses who have employees or seasonal workers and no-show part of the policy being removed. Where are you with that part of the negotiation? Are those things still being talked about? Do you feel like you're moving forward?
Yeah, and I appreciate it. You know, I try to repeat myself because if I talk too fast, you know, it's hard to follow. And you basically recited the entire list, so excellent job. But I would say, yeah, I mean, the number one thing here that's important putting it together is to protect our small businesses and our workers from frivolous lawsuits brought on by activist, radical left-wing extremists who are going to come in and just file lawsuits against employers that they don't even work for. And then the deck is stacked against the employer, and the employer has to prove that there was not a violation. I mean, especially in such a confusing new law, to have that kind of stuff going on would be very destructive to our economy. And so it's critical that any deal ensures that there are not these frivolous lawsuits, and this is done administratively by our LEO director in a manner that's fair right down the middle. Because if there are violations, they should be punished. But you shouldn't stack the deck assuming they're violations. It needs to be a fair process, and it needs to be done administratively. And if you look at the versions of the bills that have all been introduced, all of them do that so far. Even Sam Singh's Democrat solution does that. And so as we're looking at a deal, I would say the most important reason that we want a deal is because all sides currently agree on that issue, that we shouldn't have radical left-wing activists filing frivolous lawsuits with this private right of action, and then the burden is stacked against the employer, that's not a good legal process to administer this. Secondly, as we're working through, I would say we still need to figure out how do you treat small business in this. You look at small businesses, it's harder for small businesses to comply with this new law than it is for the big corporations. And so can you work into this deal things that make it easier for small business to comply? Because these small businesses are willing to comply and they want to comply, but these are very confusing rules. So how do we make it simpler for them, and how do we make it where they can afford to do it? Those are all things that we're currently working through, but we're getting closer together on it. What were the other ones you mentioned? Yep, so the no-call, no-show, people can't believe this. I mean, if you polled this, you should poll this. You guys are always polling things like, we saw Dick DeVos versus Mike Duggan. You guys polled that, and the only thing it confirmed for all of us is people love Dick DeVos, and I understand that. I like Dick DeVos. He's a great guy. But we could be polling more serious stuff like this. And if we were polling the question here, do you believe that a new law should take effect where you don't have to call and you don't have to show up for work for days, and there's nothing the employer can do about it, and if they do something about it, a left-wing radical activist can sue you, and then and the burden of proof is stacked against the employer? How would that poll? I bet it wouldn't poll very well. Most people in Michigan believe if you're sick or you can't go to work, you should call and notify somebody. I mean, it just makes sense. That's part of being a good colleague, and helping your team, right? Is if you're sick, you call and say, hey, I'm sick. So to create a new law that says you don't have to show up for work and you don't have to notify anybody, that just doesn't work with the people of Michigan. So as we're going through this, that's something that's really important that we solve. And I'll just say, I feel good that we're moving in the right direction. Fortunately, there are still Democrats in the Michigan legislature who can see my point of view on that if you are not coming to work, you should notify somebody. And if you don't, then there should be some ability for the employer to get you to do that in the future. So that's a really positive development. And I understand, I also was not sure whether there were Democrats that actually believe that, but fortunately there are, and they're moving our way. I'm just looking at our other stuff. The seasonal workers, we're trying to figure out how do you come together on that, because it is true that there are situations where it's very difficult to administer this with people that are only there for short periods of time. So we're working through that as well. I'm going to grab, did you move this all the way down here, somebody? Is this mine? I didn't put it there. I put it like here. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Did you see that? Somebody took it, one of the media took it and moved it all the way across that table just to make it harder. It was probably in the shot. Is that why? What was the question? Was there a question? Yeah.
I guess it's pretty good, but since we're getting so close, midnight is getting near, might you have to adopt an extension of the status quo just to get over the line? Even if you get something done tonight, might you have to extend the status quo just to be in a position to enact whatever it is that you want?
No, I don't think we'll adopt a extension. I think we need to keep that pressure on the legislature. I mean, if you give politicians even the slightest crack to not have to make a decision, they'll take it. And so I think we need to keep that pressure on and try to get it done by midnight. Now, I understand it's risky, especially with this group up here of politicians, but we're going to try very hard to get it done before midnight, and I don't think we want an extension. I think we're better off putting the pressure on and then, hoping that the Leo director, Corbin, is reasonable in how it's enforced after midnight. If it goes there, then giving an extension to the politicians and losing the momentum when we're so close to a deal, because these people will do whatever they can to avoid having to make a decision. And if you give these radical left union bosses more time, I mean, think about the other trucks they'll start driving around here. We could lose the deal. So we want to keep it pushing toward midnight tonight. And I also want to give a lot of credit to our partners in the Senate Republicans. You know, if we get this done, one of the reasons that we're going to get it done is because of the unprecedented unity between the House Republicans and the Senate Republicans. It's very easy for the House Republicans to say, I want these 6 things, and then the Senate Republicans to wait till we get those 6 things and then move the goalposts and say, we want these 6 things. I think Democrats are looking for a while at a way to get out of this and blame Republicans, okay? Because we all know if this deal does not get done, Democrats will be blamed. Democrats are the people that the public will blame if this doesn't happen, because they see how reasonable Republicans are being. Republicans, not only did I put a deal on the table to meet the Democrats in the middle that they adopted very quickly on a tip credit, but we put a middle-of-the-road compromise on the table, and then we're reaching even further across the aisle. So I think the public sees the Republicans are being very reasonable. So if a deal doesn't get done, it's because of Democrats. Well, with a unified House Republican and Senate caucus, you know, it isn't like that. We work with Leader Nesbitt, we come up with our priorities, we work together as a team, and if we get it, then we both perform. And so that makes it much easier to get a deal done, and it's really something you've never seen up here in many, many years. So if we get a deal done, you know, the Senate Republicans, I think, are also valuable in that. I mean, they're probably the unsung heroes of a deal, because having 2 caucuses working together hand in hand makes it so much easier to negotiate a deal and much harder for the Democrats to walk away and blame the Republicans, which, by the way, many people think is what they were trying to do. But we've boxed them in by being so unified. Yeah, Colin, I'm going to go with Colin here. You guys work together, don't you? So, okay, so let's give him a shot, and then if he doesn't get it, then we'll go back to you, all right?
Yeah, so just a logistically follow
Yeah.
up this question, and so how would that work though? You know, if it does pass the legislature, so at least to go to the governor's desk, that takes time, and it should be involved with the Secretary of State, that takes time, and then you interact with offices.
Yeah.
So logistically, like, what does that look like for Friday, making sure that this is in fact that business is and everyone knows what the deal is?
Yeah, so again, I think this is going to be in the Leo department to figure out. My job as the Speaker of the House is to get this done as quickly as we can if we have a deal. We've got to wait on the Senate to send it over to us, and then we'll move it as soon as we have the votes. If that's after midnight, we're going to stay here and try to get it done. I've told you that I'm willing to have session tomorrow if I have to, and then that'll be in the hands of Leo to deal with the fallout of that. But I don't want to lose the momentum of being close to a deal and putting an extension out there, because then these guys, these politicians up here, they'll all squirm out of it, and it'll be June, and we'll be standing here still talking about this. And we've got a lot more to do. Not only is heat got a lot more going, but we need to see a roads deal too. I mean, you saw the governor and I agree on 50% of a roads deal. Imagine what we could do if we're spending that time on fixing the roads instead of debating this, which really we should have done in December when the House Republicans walked off the floor because the Democrats went back on their word on the deal. So we were close then, it fell through, we're close now. I want to press and get a deal tonight rather than pull off and then lose it a second time, and then we don't know if we'll ever get there again. Rick?
It sounds a little like you might be suggesting that if you don't reach a deal by midnight and the law takes effect, are you counting on the department to slow law enforcement?
I think that I'm counting on the Leo department, and I've mentioned there's a much more reasonable director there, Corbin, who I met with, who's much more reasonable than Jeff Donofrio. We remember during the pandemic when we had to worry about the Leo department coming in and abusing their power, and that's when we had to do that, right? When Jeff Donofrio was there, we had hearings and we were very worried that the Leo department would come in and investigate businesses for violations of the COVID pandemic and not be reasonable, okay? Now, I've measured up Director Corbin. I've met with her. And I have confidence that Director Corbin will be much more reasonable, and Director Corbin will be reasonable in enforcement, because there's a lot of confusion here. There's confusion. I mean, these people don't know what the law is going to be in just a few hours, and so I think we can have some reasonableness in enforcement as we're looking at what happens, especially if we're on the cusp of a deal. Yeah.
You mentioned that you want a deal for today,
Mhm.
but we all know that today can always bleed into tomorrow.
Mhm.
Is there a deadline in particular that you'd like to have those in your chamber, or a deadline for this night? Because there has
Yeah.
to be some movement.
Well, I want to get it right. So, you agree in concept, and like I said, I think both sides are giving, and I think we're getting close. But, as you're doing that, you've got to read the details, right? And so we want to make sure that the bill drafters are drafting this thing up the way it's intended. And you might get into some small details and have to work through that. So we want to get the policy right. So to me, getting the policy right is more important than what time it passes. But with that said, once we get a deal, I hope both sides will move quick on it, and it's our intent to move as quickly as we can in the House once we get it from the Senate. If it's after midnight, then the department's going to have to figure that out. But our job is to get it over as quickly as we can to give Governor Whitmer as much time to sign it as possible, assuming she will sign it. And in my view, she'll have to look at what we come up with, and hopefully she will sign it. But if she vetoes it, we did our best, and then we'll go back and try to figure out what to do from there.
Is the governor part of these negotiations?
So I've only talked to Sam Singh about the details. I mentioned that, Governor Whitmer and I have a great relationship, and she's very accessible to me. And anytime I need to talk to her, I talk to her. But right now, the conversations about the details are really happening between myself and Sam Singh. And then, I think we're keeping most of the other leaders apprised of what's going on. And we'll see if we get a deal, then we'll see what other people do in reaction to it.
Let's just do a couple more, and then get you back downstairs.
Okay.
So suffice to say that if the deal is reached tonight before midnight, it hits the governor's desk, then essentially the governor's going to have to take it.
Well, it isn't the intention. Do you know what I mean? So I wouldn't view it as the intention is governor, take this or leave it. I would just say that is the effect of the Democrats failing to deal with this in December. Remember, Democrats could have handled this in December, and we were working toward that solution, and the House Democrats broke their word and walked away from the deal. And that had a lot of effects. It affected potential road deals. It affected a lot of potential deals. And then you saw a lame duck spiral out of control, and Democrats virtually getting very little done of their agenda. So, look, we're just dealing with the fact, I'll say this. I knew when we were preparing to win the House that there were two paths here. Path one, which I preferred, which was we get a deal done before the end of last year, or path two, which was going to be a very difficult condensed deadline after I took power on January 8th with a February 21 deadline. I had hoped that we would do it in December, but look, I came in January 8th. We had committee hearings within a week of that. We moved these bills through our chamber a month ago. And Democrats really didn't get serious about negotiating this until a couple days ago. So it's not my intent to give Whitmer that kind of ultimatum. It's just the effect of what Democrats decided to do in being up against a February 21 deadline. So I would just say I've always worked in good faith to try to get this deal done as quickly as possible and to take input from other leaders that I respect.
Talk to me just very quickly about this idea, though. If you went past midnight, you're illegally
Right,
you thought about
yeah.
that might actually be smart? There's a Sam Bevin's memo about the fact that maybe this law hasn't even went into effect. Have you had any conversations about would it be smart to allow this to go into effect for some amount of time?
Well, I mentioned that this Biden appointee is a real fringe thinker. And so you look at this guy, he has very fringe legal views. And he was a Biden appointee, and he worked for Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And my understanding is he worked for Eric Holder. Now, some of you in the media might think those are impressive credentials because you respect those people, but they're very partisan credentials, and this guy is a left-wing partisan hack. So we didn't give any thought to what his letter said. I don't know, but it'll be interesting. It'll be interesting that'll be interesting to see what people say about that if it happens that way. Yeah. And did you guys see, by the way, Dave Eggert has been covering this issue better than anybody. So much detail in Cranes. If you don't read Cranes, you should.
I actually have a question on the lobbying bills. Did you consider having a cooling off period for legislative staffers, particularly top agents who are very involved in bills, particularly like sessions and how they go right into lobbying?
Well, I'll say, by the way, David Martin and Mark Tisdale and Jerry Nyer did a great job on those bills and worked those. And, they went through the Government Operations Committee, which has been doing a great job with Brian Begole. And I was listening to Jerry Nyer's speech today on the House floor. Wouldn't it be nice if I could talk as succinctly and get my points across as Jerry Nyer? Now, how does he do it so fast? He gets so much in there, and he talks for like 30 seconds. We should probably put him up here because he's so good. But with that said, and I would just say that we wanted to make sure that the Whitmer administration officials were covered, that the key Democrats like Nessel, Benson, Whitmer were covered. We don't want them becoming lobbyists, Gilchrist. And then the politicians, the legislators, the House and Senate, we wanted them included. And I thought it was important too, the ones that are here now are included. Because, it's easy to say, and this is what some Democrats are doing with FOIA, which is, we all know, only Craig Mauger's talking about FOIA. We've all moved on. We all see HEAT is a much more significant transparency, ethics, and accountability plan. But I'll just say, they want to apply to people in the future when they're all gone. We want it to apply to us. That's, it's easy to say, other people administer this and deal with this, but if we're still there, it's going to apply to us. I think that's really important. But that's as far as it got in the process was members, department appointees, and politicians like the governor, the attorney general, secretary of state, and lieutenant governor. All right, well, hopefully we talk again and we have good news, but at least you got something for now. Thank you, everybody.